This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast brought to you by Julian's Auctions. They've got the big Jim Henson Company 70 years anniversary auction coming to you November 25th, 2025 here in Los Angeles, California.
So
Go
exciting.
to julians.com to check out the auction.
It's in the future. It hasn't already happened.
It hasn't happened, although whenever this airs, maybe I don't know what happens. Yeah. But it's coming, or it happened and it was great, or it will be great. Some version of that.
It's exciting.
But we have an incredible show for you today, which
Lord.
Actually we're really
Coup
excited
after
about.
coup.
Yeah. No, this is super exciting actually. And a sort of a funny story, which we'll get to in 5 minutes. But very quickly, how are you, Ryan? By the way, let's start there. You rapped. You had a rap party.
We had a rap party. Yeah,
That's
I'll share a
excellent.
picture. I think I can share a picture.
I feel like that doesn't
We
give
can
away
see it.
anything.
Yeah. We did show something which I can't share, but we, but I will share the photo. I've shared the photo, so Bart has the photo, so he will actually cut that photo right in here to me, standing at the rap party, and I did not take the photo, but one of our writer producers took it and sent it to me, and I said, I look like the douche that comes out and then has to tell everybody that Led Zeppelin has left the building. Because it's like this rock concert atmosphere, and I'm the guy in the suit. It's like, the fun is over, everybody go home. But no, it was ebullient. People were,
And maybe
cheery and in a good mood.
put up a picture of the cake that shows Damon dying. Maybe put up a picture of that too.
Is it cake?
Or is it just Damon dying? Anyway.
No, it's a real skeleton. We'll get to that later. Yes.
Congratulations, though. That is excellent. Bravo.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good time. And it's funny when you see everybody out and out of context. And we were joking earlier. I very much needed Mr. Tony Hell as Gary following me around doing that's the senator from Missouri. They voted against your bill, to do it, because you're seeing people out of context. And also, somebody joked to me having brushed their hair for the first time in 3 months,
or the guy that always wears a baseball cap isn't wearing a baseball cap and has a wife. It's
turns out great head of hair. Yeah. But no, it was great fun, and I feel like we didn't really have a rap party in season 1 because it was COVID and kind of sad, and everybody was dead tired. And season 2 was okay, but I think this is the best one we had yet, and it's very nice to see people that you've worked with for literally now 5.5 years. Some of them. It is
funny, and I mean, I know our listeners certainly know that obviously I guess I'm one of the few people on earth still sort of worried about COVID, conceptually. But I was watching, and I highly recommend.
It's also worried about you.
Yes, well, it should be. It needs to look out for me. But I was just watching the Scorsese documentary on Apple TV, which is
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Really, really wonderful. Really,
okay,
I highly recommend it. And he does.
Is it better than Loot?
Oh, I know those Loot people. Anyway, it's better than the Billy Joel documentary, or at least part 2 of the Billy Joel. I love part 1, but here's what I will say. Yeah. Unlike part 2, Martin Scorsese does not shy away from his drug issues, his anger issues, and his getting married to a lot of ladies issues. And there's something.
Billy Joel had a normal life. He lived in his house. He sailed his boat, and he married 7 people. I mean, that's what people do.
He puts his pants on 7 wives at a time. Yeah.
There were no problems in his life at all. It just happened that way.
I did like part 1 of the Billy Joel. I thought he was very open and brave, I guess, about the suicide attempt, and I love that ex-wife of his and that whole story. But part 2 was somewhat disappointing. Anyway, the Scorsese thing is incredible, but it is this funny thing where it's 2025, and it's very clear that some of these interviews with him, and at the very end when he's working on the last movie of his, or Native American movie, What's it called? I can't think of the name of
Cape
it.
Fear?
No. The one where they're murdering the people on the reservation for their money, the oil wells and whatnot. Yeah,
the book.
The
now
book.
You did it to me.
I know. Sorry, I apologize. But anyway, everybody's wearing masks. Like it was all sort of shot and like basically put together during
Killers
COVID.
of the Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon. Yes.
You like.
I know.
I was trying to do August Osage County, like that
so
play.
Except I wanted to add the word lake. Lake Osage County is what I wanted to call it. I don't know.
It was the tribe. It was the tribe, but not that at all.
Yeah. Just the worst.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Dave, it's fun getting old.
Yes, no, I got to go for an MRI very soon. But it's so weird because like they're wearing masks.
But remember how
stuff.
many Boba Fett helmets were made for Empire Strikes Back? That you can just pull out of that file cabinet. Yeah.
And obscure like episodes of Happy Days and stuff like that. Yeah. that luckily doesn't leave me. But no, I highly recommend everybody watch it. But also, it was fascinating to sort of, I don't know, just to see that part of it. I don't know, wherever that fits in. Speaking of COVID,
but by the way, speaking of lines from sitcoms, you will very much enjoy. Neither one of my children has ever seen Seinfeld. I think we will get to the place where they do, and not that I think it's inappropriate. I just wanted to see it when they can appreciate it.
Yeah, there's still a couple, 3 or 4 years away.
Yeah, like we got to do Simpsons, and like we got to build our way there a little bit. But today, I don't even know what prompted it tonight. But my oldest said, we were just sitting, my wife had said something, I wasn't really paying attention. My oldest just said, "I didn't tell you to put the bomb on." So there are just quotes that come out of them because we say things to each other.
So
out of
they've
context.
heard you say, like, "Who told you to put the bomb on?" I didn't tell you to put the bomb on. And now they're saying it, but they have no idea what Seinfeld is. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Bravo.
So I just I feel like we've achieved something. Yeah.
No, you are doing a hell of a job parenting. God bless. Yeah, really, 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 really good. You're winning. Fantastic. What's new in props? Anything new in props for you? I'll go first if you. I don't know whether you have something.
I can do
one.
Go for it. It's more
Please.
It's a tease. It's an annoying tease.
Tease
you
away.
You might notice some emptiness going on.
I did notice.
It's a little looser.
The bottom shelf seems to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
and you can do a video comparison. There are other things that are missing. Some moves are being made. We will discuss them at a future date.
I love moves. This is very exciting, and it's a hell of a move. I mean, I know a bit about it, and it's a hell of a move. So I think if people maybe start to figure it out, it'll be very cool. But
more to come.
Yeah, send your guesses in. Send your guesses in. We have a contest.
Maybe this could be like our triumphant sort of like season finale. Sort of, we'll bring it out. Maybe I'll show it. We'll do that.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
What did Ryan get this time?
I love the idea that this show ever ends, that these seasons even mean anything.
Well,
what are we
year,
on? Season 87?
Yes,
I can't even tell anymore.
The final episode of the year we'll do. How about that?
I do think we will, for those interested. I do think we're going to try and make it to the end of the calendar year 2025, and then perhaps take a little break in sort of January and February till auctions start up again.
Yeah, until auction season comes
give
around.
ourselves a little break. So sort of our hiatus will be auction hiatus, which at least will be something, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
That's sort of our loose plan at the moment.
And we can
for
plan
those,
guests and do all that fun stuff. So what's new in props for you, Dave?
So I can't even remember if we ever talked about it in the show already or not. I've lost all track. But basically, the great Shelley Duvall died, I believe, earlier this year or late last year. I can't remember when. And she lived, I think, in Texas. And so there was
year.
It was last year. Okay, an auction house in Texas did a couple of different auctions of her stuff. I think they did more of a general auction of things like furniture and whatnot.
Belongings.
Yes, but then they did a more specific auction of memorabilia and autograph stuff and whatnot that was basically last week. And there were a couple of lots that I was sort of following. I was following a Time Bandits lot that was interesting, although I was hoping for call sheets that was not clear. That didn't seem to be there. I kept my eye on a lot of Popeye stuff. There were scripts from The Shining and whatnot, but there was a whole bunch of Shining call sheets. And even though I have one in my collection, I bought the lot of them. I thought it would be really fun to get a couple more, and figured maybe even without talking to you, I figured you might be game for one.
Can I buy one?
You can indeed. So I figured you'd have interest as well. But I don't know, the chance to get a couple more of those. I don't know. It's The Shining. It's Kubrick, and it was from her estate. I was very, very pleased. So those
now I have 2 What's New in Props.
There you
tonight.
go. So those have not shown up yet, but I did grab those last week, basically, so I'm very excited about that. So that was very fun, and it's there's always something. There's lots of weird little stuff that sometimes I find more pleasing than, say, the $1 million purchase. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the one that makes you clean out your display cabinet.
Right, exactly, and go, what's missing? So that was good.
It's that time of year though, where like there's a bunch of just little auctions that from smaller houses that that you have to kind of dig around and pay attention to, because it's not Julian's Prop Store, Heritage, Sotheby's, Christie's. There's other stuff going on out there.
You have to find them more than they're perhaps going to find you a little bit, or at least have a more active sort of search engine kind of a thing, which yeah, it's funny. The other thing which I didn't buy, I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but I will anyway, is I've been following this seller. I think there's some kind of prop or costume house, because they have a lot of stuff and they must be just selling off things occasionally. And I love that Val Kilmer movie, rest in peace, Spartan, the David Mamet movie about where he sort of has to rescue the president's daughter. Yeah. I fucking love that movie. And all of a sudden, they've had a couple of new costumes that they've put up.
It's funny, Kelvin mentioned this to me.
I think he and I are obsessed with this movie, and I sent them to him. And so, nothing that either of us has quite pulled the trigger on. And there is a dream prop from that movie, which is, anyone who's seen the movie, he has a farm. Val Kilmer's character has a farm, and he has this I can't remember. It's like a can opener from a seed shop that he kind of throws to somebody, and that's how they track him down. He doesn't really remember it. And that's one of the props I've always dreamed of finding. Anyway, they had a couple of costumes. They're not quite what I want them to be quite yet, but I'm keeping my eye on it. So that was a little exciting too. Again, I just, that's one of those movies I just have in heavy rotation. I watch it every couple of months. I really dig it.
Yeah. So, cool. I've seen it, but I now I need to go back. I did see it in the theater when it was in, and I remember enjoying it because I was obsessed with Mamet.
Right. I don't want to oversell, but I would tell you, I go back for whatever reason, Spartan and the Gene Hackman, the Heist movie.
I watched Heist when Hackman died. That was the movie that I pulled up and watched. Yeah.
So damn good and really holds up, like across the board, like really enjoyable. Just great cutting dialogue and just hell of performances from everybody across the board. Anyway. And by the way, there is a Hackman
except
auction.
For the girlfriend or wife or whatever.
Well, you always sort of, every Mamet movie has Mamet's current wife in it. I think that's across the board, some better than others. They're actually auctioning off Gene Hackman's possessions. I don't know if this is like the family stuff, or I think there's weird stuff with his will, but there's a whole bunch of his paintings.
Art collection.
Yes, he had an art collection, but he also painted and sketched. Yeah. And he actually painted some gorillas, which I've had my eye on. Very,
Perfect.
Kind of fascinating, like painted
Stuff
by
dreams
Gene
are made
Hackman.
of crossroads.
Yeah, don't you think? There's a couple of vague prop-related things, but nothing that was killing me. I don't know if you looked at any of it, but it was okay stuff.
I did, but it's fun to see. But
yeah.
I was gonna excoriate you because you crushed the segue before, because I was gonna say when you were
speaking
on
of The Shining?
Shelley Duvall, speaking of horror legends, and then you went on to this jag about where were we first before Spartan?
Speaking of gorillas, speaking of gorilla paintings by Gene Hackman,
but that's where I was
our guest today.
Speaking of creatures. There we go. It comes all the way back around.
This is actually pretty incredible. It's a very funny, quick little story, which is our guest tonight is the one and only Greg Nicotero.
So exciting.
Amazing effects legend, co-founder of KNB FX. He was the N. I learned that today.
Kurtzman, Nicotero Burger.
Yeah. He was the N. It wasn't just random letters. He's the N. And it's funny, we were actually going to try and have him back when we were doing the Heritage Walking Dead, brought to you by Julian's Auction. And I guess because of AMC and their involvement with the show and his involvement with the show, the whole thing got kind of a little messy. Scuppered. And it was almost like easier not to have him, which actually kind of worked out really well because it means we get to have him today. And we actually, while we will talk a little bit about The Walking Dead and it will come up, it gets to be about one of the coolest things I think in the world, which is the fact that he works in the effects industry. He is a amazing effects guy, but he is a collector and he is a hardcore collector. And this chat gets pretty hardcore collecting wise in a really great way, which I think is going to, I think it's not something he gets to talk a lot about in other interviews, which are mostly, I think, more about his work. And don't get me wrong, we're going to talk about his work, but it was really fun talking with him.
Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. Horror effects, special effects, legend, executive producer, director, legend, friend of Steven Spielberg, and Kirk Hammett.
And Gene Hackman monkey fan, gorilla painting fan.
Correct. Mr. Greg Nicotero.
Greg, thank you so much for joining us. This is many moons in the making. And speaking of moons, really quickly, because I see a giant like werewolf behind you. The best background ever, by the way, just ever of any guest. What's just give us just a quick little what's going on behind you? Just
the wolf actually is the rod puppet werewolf from The Howling that Rob Bottin made.
Awesome.
It ended up in my collection. It was in really, really bad shape, which I'll share some photos with you guys. Tom Spina did the restoration of the head. And during the pandemic, I ended up restoring the hands and feet. And I didn't want to change the body. So we made a first suit that went over it. And it's still got the original dowel rods coming out of the back. So that is cool. A Rob Bottin Shank Brothers special.
That's incredible. What else?
What else? I see. What else is going on behind you there?
There's a werewolf, Lunchini werewolf that we created here. There's a Bela Lugosi Frankenstein that Mike Hill sculpted the head for me. We have I have to move out of the way. There's a replica of Jack from American Werewolf in London.
Awesome, yeah.
That we used in The Walking Dead as a zombie cameo.
Perfect.
And then over there we have a Mike Hill mummy. Then there's a Glenn Strange Frankenstein way in the back that we created here. And then off to this side, that is the original Creep from Creepshow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Excellent. I know that's like on your Mount Rushmore of movies, right? Creepshow.
It is. Well, I visited the set when I was 17 years old. So that's kind of the Mount Rushmore. And, a lot of people know this. You guys probably already know this, but back then they used real skeletons. So
wait, no, hold on. No, I did not know that. Hold on.
There was a company called Carolina Biological, and what they did was they supplied skeletons to like medical schools and stuff. And a lot of special effects people ended up getting their skeletons from Carolina Biological. I believe Craig Reardon used them on Poltergeist. I think there's some real skeletons used. I think there was some real skeletons used in Raiders of the Lost Ark in the crypt that they just, you could buy them for like $300. So when Savini did Creepshow, he went to Carolina Biological and bought a real skeleton. So that is actually a real skeleton.
Incredible. The best worst news I've ever heard in my
Well,
life. That
the
is
funny thing
insane.
about it is when we were doing the Shutter series Creepshow, I actually came up with a story about a collector who collects real skeletons from movies, because there's a famous story in Pittsburgh when they did Dawn of the Dead, that Tom used one of these real skeletons, and supposedly when the movie was done filming, it ended up in a costume shop outside of Pittsburgh. And a cop went by there one day to rent a costume and saw the skeleton and was like, that's a real skeleton. And they picked it up and they took it to the morgue, and the county coroner at the time was like, yeah, this is a real skeleton. And they didn't know that it was used for the movie. So there was a big drama about it.
Investigation.
Yeah.
I will say I really appreciate this story as somebody who is, and Greg, you certainly appreciate this as somebody who makes movies and television today in 2025. I just had a maddening conversation about health and safety because I've been staring at cuts with archers again and again, just pulling back bowstrings empty of any arrow with the expectation that we are now going to just digitally put in every arrow, including arrows that are never launched, just a guy dramatically drawing it in the camera. And I'm like, why can't, like, I understand when everybody says loose and they're going to like fire a bunch of arrows at the, charging army, that we can't do that for health and safety. But I don't understand this one. And they're like, well, it's a health and safety thing. And I looked at the visual effects person who has even less hair than he did last year. And I'm like, this is a big thing, right? He's like, you can't, I don't even get me started. It's like how difficult it is to track every single missing, because you have to fill in every bow on the screen. And I love how we go from 1980s real skeletons and cadavers being used in film to not even rubber arrows are okay.
Not even that. Yeah, look, on Walking Dead, we ended up making Daryl's crossbow with just a piece of elastic so that you could put the arrow in and pull it back. Same with the archers. But it didn't have any tension to it. So when you'd pull the trigger, the arrow would go like that. But the VFX people,
you at least could pull a trigger. You could at least
shoot it through the bow and arrow, but it didn't have any force behind it, so it would just drop. And then the VFX guys on Walking Dead were like, "That's great, because all we need is to track it.
There's reference
leaving the weapon." Yeah.
Yes. Apparently, that is now a bridge too far. So I'm going to tell them tomorrow. I spoke with Greg Nicotero, and he said it's okay.
Yeah.
To
They just make a special bow that's got a really elastic bowstring.
I was trying to remember my old writing partners on Seinfeld, Jeff Schaffer and Alec Berg. I think it was Jeff Schaffer had a skeleton idea back in the day when you could order real skeletons. Something with Kramer ordering a skeleton and then someone realizing that it was a relative of theirs somehow, like I don't know, like wherever like from whatever country the skeletons were from. And I have to now email them and ask them what was that story.
Maybe it was a relative of Babu. Maybe.
Yes, it was something with like Pakistan or something like that, where the skeletons were coming from in a very vaguely horrible way. Anyway, some kind of a story like that. That's where my brain goes. Well, if you're just tuning in, the reason we wanted to talk with Greg Nicotero is not just because he is an incredible effects and makeup guy with a wonderful career, which we're going to ask some questions about, because at his core, he is just like us, and he is a wonderful nerdy collector. And we have been dying to talk to you. I feel like we could talk about just Jaws alone, but let's at least try and set the stage. Okay. And I know you've done a million of these just on your career, but you were a kid, you were into monsters, and you did something about it. Is that the best way of putting the story?
Absolutely. I think I was fortunate enough to grow up in Pittsburgh, and George Romero and Tom Savini were there, and George was the only game in town in terms of movie stuff. And ironically, I met him because my uncle was a local actor, and George and I became friends. And then I became friends with Tom Savini during the making of Creepshow.
And how old are you in that period there, like when you're kind of seeking them out and becoming friends?
16, 17.
Great.
I think I met
Very
George. I
cool.
think I met George when I was 16. Um, and then, they were filming. Night Riders, and then they were filming Creepshow in Monroeville, and I would go out and visit on Saturdays because I was in high school. I literally was in high
Sure.
school and had to go out on the weekend. And it was kind of ironic because George was like, "Hey, you want a job as you could be like a production assistant on the show." And I said, "Well, I'm in high school. I'm in my senior year, and I'm going to get ready and go off and be a doctor. So probably thanks." And George was like, "Well, just come visit." And so, I think that's probably where the excitement really started. And I've never even thought about this until now that we're having this conversation because, Tom kept everything from every one of his movies. So
Oh,
when,
wow.
when you
Okay.
would go to Tom's house, it would be like Betsy Palmer's head from Friday the 13th was on the shelf. And
Yes.
and he kept like all the weapons, like the machete from Dawn of the Dead that had the little cutout that you could do the reverse. Tom kept all that stuff. So when you walked into his house, it was like a museum of makeup effects, props. And he used to spray Armor All on them to preserve them. He was convinced that Armor All was the way to preserve everything.
Okay.
Which I still, I there's no way that actually really works other than maybe preserving the surface. But, because foam latex, the cell structure underneath starts to break apart and then there's nothing you can really do about it. But I remember going to Tom's house quite often, and he always had props from his movies. And because I was a big Tom Savini fan, of course, I was actually like, oh, you mean you keep all the stuff when the movie's over and it goes on your shelf. And then I was really fascinated by that.
That is wonderful.
So was your first instinct standing in there, I want to own this stuff or I want to do this for a living? Where did the collector or the filmmaker get awakened first?
Probably the filmmaker, but I had started collecting posters. Movie posters was actually where I first started. My uncle that worked for George Romero and was in the Crazies, he moved to California and he sent me my first movie poster, which was Valley of Gwangi.
Yeah.
Was the first movie poster that I ever got. And then in 1975, they had a creation convention, Star Trek, in Pittsburgh, and I ended up going. And there was a guy who named Jerry Olinger, who had a,
Yo,
who had a
who had a store in New York
I've been
City
to
that I
there.
used to go to. Yeah.
Met
he
him.
had a
Yep.
store in New York City, and I was walking through the dealers' rooms. I didn't even know what the convention was. It was like William Shatner was going to be there, and I went up to Jerry Olinger's table, and he had like a little brochure, and you could buy. And he had posters hanging up, and it was like a Jaws poster for $5, and Towering Inferno, and whatever, and $5. And I was like, oh my God, you can actually buy movie posters. I didn't even know you could buy them somewhere. So then, of course, I would send away. I started collecting like 16 millimeter trailers. So it was mostly like that kind of stuff originally. I never really thought about physical props until I met Tom, and then it was like, oh, that's wild. You can actually keep keep the props from the movies that you work on. And I remember that convention that I went to. No, there was a convention later. There was a guy there named Bob Michelucci, and he had worked on Dawn of the Dead. And he was the guy who published. Remember Tom's the Dawn of the Dead fold out poster book,
Okay. Yep.
and
Yep.
uh, and he was the publisher of that. And he had props from Dawn of the Dead for sale at his table. It was like a little rubber zombie hand, like, and it was $1,000. He wanted $1,000 for a prop hand from Dawn of the Dead. And
that seems like a lot for that time period.
In 1978, you know.
Yeah, that seems like a fortune in 1978.
It was, because back then nobody really spent money on that kind of stuff. Most of the time it either got reused or repurposed, or, you know, it was like given away. Like, hey, I worked on Dawn of the Dead. Do you want to hear it? Have a zombie hand, you know? So I remember seeing that and was like, oh my God, how do I get $1,000? I mean, I was 17 years old. Like, how do you get $1,000 when you're 17? So I've subsequently since then seen him and been like, dude, what the fuck were you thinking? $1,000. You destroyed my one chance to have a prop from Dawn of the Dead.
He goes, I still have it. No one ever bought it. Now it's $1 million. But
yeah,
anyway,
well, anyway, I do own the original painting from that poster book, though. That a guy named Ron Mahoney was the artist, and he's still alive. It's kind of funny because it's a beautiful painting. It's all in watercolor. And I reached out to him and said, hey, the painting's faded a little because the watercolors have faded. And I actually sent it to him and asked him to spruce it up a little bit. And he looked at it and he's like, you know, I really would hate to, if I start, I'm going to end up repainting the whole thing. So I think you should just leave it as is. But I was excited that he was still alive, and then I sent it to him, and it was kind of wild.
So jumping back to 17-year-old you were talking about medical school or something of that nature.
Yeah.
How quickly did that go out the window, and did you find yourself into the film industry?
Well, not as quickly as you would think, because graduated from high school and went away to college. I studied 3 years. And in the meantime, you know, Creepshow came out in 81, I think. And then I stayed in touch with Tom and George. And then it was the summer before my senior year. And I went to have lunch with George downtown in his office. And he said, hey, so we got a green light for Day of the Dead. Do you want a job? And I'm like, okay. I already turned down working on Creepshow. And between Creepshow and Day of the Dead, you know, it was that explosion of makeup effects, creature effects, Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, Stan Winston, you know, American Werewolf in London, The Thing, The Howling, anything that you could imagine. So I was all in. So when George offered me a job, at that point I had gotten to be very friendly with Tom, and I called Tom and said, hey, I just got hired on Day of the Dead. I want to be your assistant. And he was like, great. And the producers loved it because they wanted Tom sort of free to sort of develop and design the effects stuff. And in terms of hiring the crew, purchasing the supplies, doing the script breakdowns, and sort of just the managing of the department, that was never really Tom's thing. So that's what I ended up doing.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So you really got thrown into it. You were more than an assistant right from the get-go.
Right from the get-go. And to the point where, like, there's literally a scene in Day of the Dead where there's an actor named Tim DeLeo who gets bitten by a zombie in the arm, and they cut his arm off with the machete. And I remember them calling me to set, like, George needs you on set right away. And I go running in, and I'm like, what's up? He said, okay, so if we cut his arm off and then we bandage it, is that the right thing to do? And I was like, well, you have to tie a tourniquet first, then you can cauterize it, and then you can loosen the tourniquet so you don't get like gangrene. So I became like the medical advisor. So George would always look at me like, okay, so does that make sense to you? I'm like, yeah, we could do that. And he always used to say, he's like, man, you would have been a really good doctor. I'm like, trust me, George, I'm very, very happy where I landed. So he would always tease me about, you had a really promising career. And I said, I think I did okay.
I think you made the right choice.
A very promising career in zombie medicine.
Yeah.
So when all of this is going on in that interim, in those 3-year period where, like, as you say, the effects world is exploding, Are you reading fanzines? Are you experimenting? Are you making your own stuff? Are you doing are you playing with the chemicals and whatnot, like keeping up with everything? Or I mean, because
Absolutely.
you're okay. So you were in it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Even when you were at college, yeah.
that's right when, you figure Fangoria magazine came out, I think in 1978. And, that really celebrated the makeup effects artist. It was, I mean, Famous Monsters did, but at that point, the only makeup artist really was either Jack Pierce or Roy Ashton, who did all the Hammer movies. So when Fangoria came out, it was all of a sudden putting these more obscure makeup effects people in the spotlight. So when you get around to like 1981, then all of a sudden, Rick Baker and Rob Bottin and Chris Walas and all these people, they're all household names if you read Fangoria, of course. And all that big boom between 1978 and 1985, where there was Friday the 13th and all those slasher movies that came out every other weekend, it really did a lot. That period between 1977, 78, and 85 was really the golden age of makeup effects and prosthetic stuff. Between Rick and Rob Bottin and Stan, and then you had all these other people that were kind of coming into their own. I was really, really hooked. I knew who everybody was. I went to see every movie in the theater, and then it's not only the effects people, but then it's Wes Craven and John Carpenter and Nightmare on Elm Street and The Thing and The Fog and Escape from New York and Life Force and every movie that Toby did, Poltergeist and E.T. and it was never ending. I mean, the summer of 1981, 82, 80, 81, 82, probably the greatest summer in genre history ever. It
Yeah.
starts with Star Trek 2, and then between those 2 years, it was Road Warrior, and it was, Zombie and Gates of Hell and Creepshow, and every weekend there was another movie, and I went every weekend.
Was the revolution in makeup special effects? Was there like a technological breakthrough that you can specifically point to, or was it simply the sort of dueling thing of like there was such a huge interest in making A versions of these what would have been previously kind of B movies, and all of the kind of new young filmmaker talent coming in and innovating and ideating and trying to figure out all that stuff? Or was there like I don't know, was there like a glue that was sort of invented or something that like the transistor of it that sped everything along? Or was it sort of a combination of all those factors?
I think it was a combination because, filmmakers at that time really began pushing the boundaries even more. If you look at Toby Hooper, Wes Craven, Sean Cunningham, George Romero, they were basically being told that what they were doing was almost pornographic. Those movies, those movies were not very well respected, and in a lot of instances, they were released unrated, which means you couldn't play a trailer on TV. You had to be
Mhm.
17 years old. I actually faked my driver's license and changed the date on the driver's license so I could see Dawn of the Dead in the theater. Um, so, you had a lot of these sort of renegade, rebellious filmmakers who were like, oh, you don't want me to do that? And you say I can't do it? Well, watch this. And I think George was definitely of that ilk. I mean, of course, The Exorcist and movies that came before definitely paved the way. But, the genre was very scandalous at that time. So I think a lot of it was, well, they're going to give us an R rating or excuse me, an X rating anyway, so we may as well just go for it. So I think also, you had Dick Smith, who was very, very willing to share his knowledge with everybody. When I started working for Tom had a binder filled with blood formulas from Dick Smith, gelatin
Oh,
formulas
wow.
from Dick Smith. It even had like Dick's phone number and address on the corner, like on the letterhead. So I think because Dick was one of without a doubt, the premier prosthetics makeup effects artists in the world, he wanted to share his knowledge with everybody. So I think him not holding it close to his chest, but being willing to share the information so that other artists could learn from what he learned from, also helped that explosion, Ryan, that you were talking about, that explosion of all of a sudden there was a lot of young people that would call Dick and go, "Hey, I'm doing this movie and I need a little help. Do you have any ideas?" And he would tell them. He would say, "Well, this is what I would do." And, "Oh, you need a blood formula? Well, let me send you my blood formula. Oh, you want to make, here's foam latex and here's the ratio of how to mix it and how to do it." So I think him being the person that he was also made a big difference. And then, of course, with this maverick way of bucking the system, then you had guys that are like, "Well, I want to do something different." And if you watch Wizard of Oz and you watch Planet of the Apes and The Exorcist, and you see that they were doing a lot with changing the faces, and when you 2001: A Space Odyssey, the chimp masks that were made by Dan Strepak. No, not Dan Strepak.
Freeborn?
Stuart Freeborn. Thank you. Um, they had a mechanism in there that when you would open the mouth and it would pull the lips back, So this technology was starting to tickle it at makeup effects artists of like, wow, it's not just makeup. Maybe there's another step that we can take this. And I think Rob and Rick certainly pioneered that with American Werewolf in London and The Howling. And then from that point on, between that and Chris Walas's Melting Head and Raiders of the Lost Ark, it just it exploded. Everybody saw that. Everybody saw The Howling in American Werewolf in London or The Thing and wanted to do that. Everybody saw that exploding head in Raiders and wanted to make an exploding head. I mean, after Raiders came out, how many other exploding heads were in movies? And I do think Scanners might have been before, though. I think Scanners might have been before, because don't forget, Dawn of the Dead had a great exploding head that Savini did, which they used a real shotgun and just shot ahead with it. Which, by the way, you're talking about shooting bows and arrows. You're talking about shooting bow and arrow on set. Try aiming a shotgun at a dummy head and filming it.
We would need to today. We would actually need to probably clear the town and actually close the airspace, I think, overhead if we wanted to try to do something like that.
Yeah, it would never happen in a million years.
So you work that summer, and I'm assuming you're hooked. That's it for you. First question: did you keep anything from that movie?
I did. I kept a few things. Nice. I kept my costume because I had a part in the movie. Ironically, when we started Day of the Dead, it was a much bigger movie. Budget was like $7 or $8 million, and it was a sprawling kind of epic. And the contingency was it had to be rated R. And George was like, "Well, fuck that. Nobody tells me what to do. It's going to be unrated." And the finance guy basically said, "Well, I can only raise $3 million." So when we did Day of the Dead, I was supposed to be. There's a scene where they find a soldier's dead, and his head is still alive, and the crazy doctor is feeding his flesh. And then when they cut the movie down, I actually became a character in the film because we had already started working on my fake head. So all of a sudden, I'm an actor. Terrible actor. So when the movie wrapped, I kept my costume. I kept a couple zombie appliances. I have a zombie mask. I don't think it's here. I think it's at home. I kept one of the zombie collars, and I don't think my costume. I don't know where my costume is anymore. It's sort of disappeared after so many years of moving from house to house. But I did keep, not only did I keep that stuff, but I kept every call sheet, every piece of paper, even the original zombie at the beginning of the movie. There's a shot where the zombie walks and it's backlit by the sun, and it walks into the shot, turns left and right, and it's missing its jaw. We called it Dr. Tongue. and it was made from a life cast of Tom that we glued appliances to. So when the movie wrapped, I had that head and kept it for years and years. And then I became friends with somebody who I'm sure you're well acquainted with, Kirk Hammett. And I gave the original head to Kirk Hammett, and he still has it.
Oh, well,
that's
cool.
a good home. That's a good home. I'm sad I didn't wear my Metallica shirt tonight because I'm a massive, huge Metallica fan, and I particularly love Kirk's taste in paintings, his Frazetta taste, and the man's got good taste.
He's got great taste, without a doubt.
And also nice that even when he auctioned off a few things, he didn't auction off the gift you gave him. So that's good too.
No, I think I already told him that he's never allowed to get rid of it, and then at some point I want to scan it. We did make one. We made one for Walking Dead. We made it, because as I mentioned earlier, when we were doing The Walking Dead, I was super keen on zombie cameos. We used to do zombie cameos all the time, and we did a radio controlled Dr. Tongue puppet as an homage to Day of the Dead, and I still have that around here someplace.
That's pretty good.
That's a good one.
So when you took that stuff from your sort of first movie, and this is a very odd question, and maybe it's more hindsight than anything else. Were you thinking of it like this is part of now? Like, were you thinking of it as a collector, or more of this was your experience and these are souvenirs? You know what I mean? Like, were you thinking of yourself as a prop collector yet, or more just sort of you had trailers, you had movie posters, this was an experience you had and you kept some things? Or were you thinking to yourself, like, I'm taking these and I'm going to get more, I'm a prop collector? And when do you start thinking, I guess, sort of now I'm making this a very complicated question.
No, I get it.
Yeah, you then you ultimately come and move to LA, and you're working and you're actively working, but you're also collecting. But when do you think of yourself as a collector? I guess that's the headline question.
I would say, I think I did look at myself as a collector. I mean, I was keeping memorabilia and stuff from the movie as a keepsake, as a fond memory. But I also had already started a poster collection, and I had seen the props that Tom had kept at his house. So I knew at that point that was something that I was interested in keeping as not only a memento from the film, but as something that I knew would have significance. You know what I mean? And
very cool.
Even to the point where Tom was getting rid of molds for some of the stuff that he had, and he's like, "Yeah, here's an interim mold of the head from Fluffy for Creepshow," and I'm like, "Oh, I'll take it." Like, I ended up. Hold on, I'm going to walk away for a second and show you what I did with it because it's right here. So Tom had this mold that was made out of a material called Adrub, and I kept it, and I ended up making this.
Oh wow! Fuck, that's
awesome. And it's right from the original mold. It's got the eyes.
I have to stop you for 1 second and just go, if you are not turning on the YouTube channel right now, podcast listeners, and looking at this incredible Fluffy, holy fuck. Yeah, this is incredible. Turn the podcast off, go to the Stuff Dreams Are Made Of YouTube channel right fucking now, please. My God. That's pretty amazing.
For this unrated podcast.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Rated X podcast. That is gorgeous.
It's really great.
But the funny thing about it is now Tom doesn't have the molds anymore, and I made one for him. He's like, "Oh, can you make me one?" I'm like, "Yeah." So we punched all the hair in it and, made a little mechanism, and it's got the tongue in there and everything.
I love it. Yeah.
Anyway.
It's funny, Greg, you brought up before the Werewolf from the Howling and having a good friend of the podcast, Tom Spina, restore it. I'm curious, do you, because you make your stuff, but like, do you kind of draw a line between making new things and not wanting to get yourself involved in restoring these priceless artifacts that you only have one shot at? Have you restored anything of your own? Have you restored something for somebody else?
I have. I mean, look here. Should we go on a little walkabout
Yeah.
for a sec? All right, let's go.
Go for
We're
it.
going to go over here. Okay, so if you look at the hands, see, these were all destroyed, and Tom consulted with me about how to fix them and make them look better. But in terms of the rotting foam latex, you know, Tom is really a master at that. So he was able to really get this thing
God, that
looking
thing looks so
amazing.
good.
The head is just incredible.
And then what we ended up doing, I didn't want to change the arms, and there's still the fur suit underneath. There's still fur on it. I didn't want to change it, but look, there's the original dowel rod that's coming out of the back. But like the profile is just magnificent.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That is gorgeous. That is really gorgeous.
So because Tom is the expert at that, like the stuff that he's restored really is fantastic. And so I sent the head to him, but I have done, some restoration stuff on some of my own things. I actually have a head in here, right, which I'll go get it right now. We're doing show and tell again.
That's okay.
Yeah, bring it.
Right. Okay, so I just don't want to drop it. It'll explode into 1,000 pieces.
Different kind of horror.
So,
yeah.
Wow. So this is the original Predator that we did for Predators, the Robert Rodriguez movie. And, the cheeks are a little rough. The foam is just deteriorating because that was done.
Is that foam latex?
It's foam latex, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's held up pretty well, but, there's, like you can see right there.
It's funny. I guess I think of that as such a more recent film. I guess I would have thought it would have not I don't know, I guess but I guess all foam latex eventually does decay a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oops. One of his dreads just fell off. But look, there is a difference though. And I think when you want foam latex to be really soft, when you're doing prosthetics, you want the foam to be soft so that the actors that are wearing it can move their faces.
Yeah. So
if it's puppeteered, it'll move realistically. So what you end up doing is you whip more air into it. And by whipping air into it, that means the cell structure inside is bigger. So when stuff starts to decompose, that's because the foam underneath those air cells are just breaking down. Now, if you're making, like Tom made the head of Betsy Palmer from Friday the 13th out of solid foam latex. It's literally solid foam latex. That's why it looks like it's like that big, because it shrank a little bit. But Tom was never really big on whipping a lot of foam into air into the foam. That's, I think, one of the reasons why.
So that's why it lasts.
That's one of the reasons why. Yeah, if you had foam latex, like there were two big types of foam. It was R&D foam, and it was Berman's and McLaughlin. There were three. Tom McLaughlin foam, which was the one that everybody loved because it was super soft, and you could whip air into it, and the edges would go down perfectly. R&D foam was like car tire. Like Tom used to be like, look, and he would take an appliance and stretch it this far, and it would never rip. But the problem is that it was so rubbery that like you couldn't blend the edges because the edges were shitty. But that stuff still, I'm wondering if I have any. I'm trying to look over my shelf to see if I have. I still have some pieces from Day of the Dead around someplace
that are still just perfect because of what he used. Wow.
They're literally like you could probably take them out and put them on somebody right now.
It's so funny because the sheer number of things like, I'm trying to think of what movie I can think of, like, what is it, Batman Returns, where those foam discs that shot out of the Batmobile.
The Bat costumes. Some of the Bat costumes, there's a lot fewer surviving, even though it was the sequel and later, and they probably made more than in 89, which is, there's one right over there. Because I guess it was just the recipe, the foam latex recipe that they used in the different movies. And who knows, was there a reason for that, or was it just, obviously it was a different, it was U.S. production versus U.K. production. Maybe the water is different.
The materials are different for sure. Also, when you're dealing with we did Jingle All the Way, and so we had to do the Turbo Man suits.
And the red sort of,
yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
And again, it's really hard. You have to use a special kind of paint because the paint has to be flexible. So part of the thing with the Batman stuff, even like when we did Spawn, when we did the suits for Spawn, you don't want it to wrinkle like rubber. So a lot of times you do run them more dense, which makes the actors really, really unhappy because it's harder to move in.
Right.
But, the thing is that the more dense it is, then the longer it's going to survive. If it's really soft and you're doing a stunt and the stunt guy grabs, and the stunt guy might rip it. And then you're like, oh, well, get rid of that suit, bring another suit out, So it's always, people don't do that kind of work that much anymore, which is kind of sad because it was really fun for a long time to like do those superhero suits and stuff.
So to pick up the chronology just a little bit, let's get you out to Los Angeles, and obviously you sort of get to start meeting some of the other guys that you kind of maybe hero worshipped a bit, or some of the guys you'd been reading about. You get to work with them; they become colleagues as much as anything, and obviously you end up founding KNB and stuff.
Yeah.
Is the collecting going through all of this? Meaning, like, as you are building your business, building your brand, are you still a collector, or is business taking sort of a forefront? And how then, as you have gone forward in your business, where do you draw the line with sort of like, well, I'm making 7 zombies and I kind of want to keep one. You know what I mean? Like, how do you think about that a little bit?
And I would tag on to that. Like, what was the first thing that you bought from like at auction, or from somebody that you didn't, on a film that you didn't work on, that you were just a fan of? Because then I think that's the big transition into like, I'm also a collector. I don't just keep...
It's one thing if you're working on a movie and you keep something. It's one thing if you meet somebody and they give you something from their collection as well. But when did you actually go like, holy shit, I have to have that as a collector? Because anyway, I know we just hit you with like 11 questions.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when I came out here, it was really interesting because I moved out here in 85, sorry. I didn't even get to Bob Burns' house until 95. I don't know. I mean, I knew who Bob was, and I knew
what the hell were you doing with your time?
I was building a company. I mean, it's so funny. I don't know if I can. I'm literally going back in my head to try to think of what the first prop is that I paid for. That's really gonna stump me. I might have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I just can't remember.
Well, do you have, what's the first one you remember?
I'm literally going through everything in my collection to try to see if I can remember. I don't remember. I really don't. I mean, it was, I continued to collect posters, and then it was, when we did Evil Dead 2, and then we started KNB in 88. I know that we kept props from all the movies that we worked on, but I'm trying to think of like the first time that I was like, holy shit, I need to have that.
Well, we know you're a big Jaws collector, so at some point you had to have bought some Jaws pieces. I don't know where that fits in, but that definitely happened, right?
I did, but it was like I got a couple teeth from Jaws. That's crazy that it's going to take me a little bit of like thought to go back in time. I know that the first real prop that I acquired that I thought, okay, this is something special, was the crate from Creepshow, and I didn't even buy it. Tom was remodeling his house, and I had a replica of Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
And he wanted it, and I said, "Hey, I'm shooting in Texas. I can have it trucked to here, and I'll get it to your house." And then he said, "Great. Well, I'm redoing my attic, and I need to get rid of this crate. So do you still want it?" I went, "Yeah, I want it."
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
And I still have it to this day. I used it in the Creepshow TV series, like for the opening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the actual original crate. That's pretty cool.
The actual original crate. Yeah. But it's wild because I'm gonna, rack my brain. I do remember seeing pieces, like I went to Henry Alvarez's shop in the early 90s, and he had all the stuff from The Thing there. And it was all falling.
Oh, wow.
It was all mostly falling apart. It was all the mechanisms of all the different puppets. And I remember they were in really bad shape. And I also remembered how small they were. They weren't like the Norris monster that comes out of the chest and is holding onto the ceiling. And I remember thinking, wow, it's not very big. And I thought, no, because they put the camera low and they used a lens to make it look much bigger than it was.
Were you, as a collector, forgetting about when you got pieces or didn't get pieces, do you have I guess, forgive me, a master list of your favorite films where you think to yourself, I don't have anything from blank, and I am like, do you look through the catalogs like we do, where you've got your master list and like you've been waiting and waiting for something from blank?
Yeah.
Like what are some of those movies that you've both collected on and some of the ones that you're still looking for all these years later?
Logan's Run, always loved Logan's Run. I finally got an original flame gun.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
have a costume. I also have one of the matte paintings that went up
great.
that I got from Prop Store not long ago. And I'm always looking for, like it was Logan's Run, it was Towering Inferno, all the Irwin Allen stuff I loved. Irwin Allen TV stuff, forget it. I mean, that was really, if I could have bought the 11-foot Enterprise before it went into the Smithsonian, I probably would have tried to find a way. I remember, I'm sure you guys know that was that auction in the late 70s where they auctioned off the Gemini 12 from Lost in Space and the Flying Sub. And it was that I still have I stared at that catalog and I looked at the photos in that catalog so much that it fell apart. And then I found another one somewhere. So I was just obsessed with all the miniatures Irwin Allen stuff. So subsequently, I've been lucky enough to get. I have the space pod from Lost in Space. I have one of the Jupiter 2s and the launch tower.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have one of the elevators from the Towering Inferno, the scenic elevator, that still has the two little holes where the little Jennifer Jones doll was that fell out of the elevator in the movie. And then and I got the Spindrift from Julian's from an auction a couple of years ago.
Brought to you by Julian's.
Yes. See how I did that?
Tie it all in.
So I've been really lucky enough to be able to sort of circle back around and acquire pieces from movies that were seminal and informative for me in my younger years. I mean, that's the stuff.
That's fantastic.
That's the stuff that I really love the most. I think I just saw a catalog that has the robot from the box robot from Logan's Run is up for auction.
Oh, wow.
That had the mirror.
Yes, that I believe in the new, I think it's the new Prop Store catalog brought to you by Julian's has the Logan's Run robot. I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're right. And I was looking at it like it's cool. I never loved that robot design, but it was still it's from Logan's Run, and you'd have to get it. Look, I also weirdly enough, I'm the kind of person that like if I get a prop that's in really bad shape, and this is a question for you guys, like, do you do sympathetic restoration to it? Do you leave it the way it is? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of restoration, but like restoration where you keep it as original as possible. You're not trying to make it look, freshly delivered to the set or anything like that. You're keeping the age of it, but stabilizing it and making it feel old and original, but still like it's not melting inside of your display case.
Stabilization for me, certainly, and I think we've talked with a lot of people, that's the biggest one, especially, like sometimes, we were talking about latex where you maybe get something and the paint is chipping off.
Yeah.
It's not so much that I want to repaint it, but I kind of want to make sure more paint doesn't come off of it. I don't mind a piece that shows its age a little bit. In fact, sometimes I personally prefer that.
As do I.
But so stabilization is a biggie. But sometimes you do have to do more, which is tough. That robot, if it's the one I'm thinking of, and again, I wish I had it in front of me. It's bigger. It's bigger than I thought it was. If it's the robot I thought it was, but it's taller than I realized.
It wheeled around. But I have a couple pieces over here. Like I have a raptor from Jurassic Park. I have the ear from Reservoir Dogs, and it's about to fall apart. But like I have the
ear from Reservoir Dogs. I love that.
It's literally in a bag right here, about to fall apart. But then I have that, which is David Warner's head from The Omen. And
oh my gosh,
yeah, awesome.
And when I got it, it was in really, really bad shape. It's made out of fiberglass, so it's not going to decompose. But it was in bad shape, and I thought, well, there was no wig on it. And we ended up repainting it and making the wig and putting the sideburns on it because I wanted it to be reminiscent of what it looked like in the movie.
And yes, you're right, Greg. It's the box robot is lot 269 in the PropStar catalog. And yes, good. It does need help. It's funny that Batman Spina worked on that guy, and because I've seen he's done a lot of bat cowls because they all kind of need help, especially if they were used because they were pulled on off his head, sweat and stretchy and whatever. And I just said I want it to look old. I want it to look like it was used. So he did a bunch of like filling in and stabilizing, but he left everything that he could leave that he wasn't worried about it getting dry and crumbling off. So you look at it and you're like, oh, that's an old cowl. It doesn't look some of them look pretty brandy new, and I just thought that was the wrong look for it. And then he permanently mounted it to the Keaton Life cast so that it just holds the shape, so it doesn't move or shift, which is when a lot of those things really get into big trouble. And
you don't want to, you don't want to touch it. You don't want to do. What else do I have up here? I'm looking to see what I have. Oh, I have this guy. Hold on. This guy is so cute. I don't want to mess him up. That's Mr. Jingles from the Green Mile.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. when he steps on him.
Oh,
he's so cute, and I'm just like I'm terrified to touch him. He's literally sitting on my shelf. Yeah. I'm waiting for like the exterminators to throw it away one day and go, "Yeah, right. You got a rat problem."
We got rid of that. We got rid of that dead mouse for you. No worries.
Yeah, here's your bill. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do werewolves though.
I was going to say, Tom did a piece for me. It was kind of an old, it was like an old foam piece. And the truth was it was missing paint all over it. And it was interesting. We did a little fixing on the top where it kind of interfered with the enjoyment of the piece. It's sort of hard to describe. Right. It's nothing memorable, but like where it kind of interfered with the face, we did a little bit of retouch up.
Sure.
But on the bottom where it didn't matter, we just kind of left it because it didn't make a difference. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of, the age was enjoyable. Greg, when you're working on something, like, when do you fall in love with a piece? When you're making it, when you see it on the set, when you see it in the film itself, like when you're like actually, like when KNB, when you're actually making something or creating something, like when does the sort of like the collector you kick in of like, oh, that's really great, or I love it? Like when does that happen for you in terms of your own stuff?
Well, that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that question before. I think no, it's great. When you're building it, it's all deadlines and approvals, and it's it's different. I think when you're on a movie set, when you're there filming, that's when it sort of comes to life. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's always things that, like, if we're doing a movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna want to keep one of those, you know. But you know, but in regards to, you know, like when you're I mean, there's thousands of pieces that we did that I would have loved to have held on to, you know,
Sure.
like stuff from Spawn and, you know, there's a lot of movies, you know, I had the syringes from Pulp Fiction
Oh, wow.
for a long, long
Oh,
time. And you
awesome.
know, the other bummer was that Planet Hollywood came in. That was when Planet Hollywood was really big, and they would go to every single effect shop with literally a giant envelope filled with money, and they would buy everything. They would buy everything. They'd come in when we did Army of Darkness. They came in and were like, "Yeah, we'll take that," and they would hand us $30,000.
Wow.
And you know, when you're a small little makeup effects company, that's a lot of money.
No, that's huge.
So,
That's
and then,
huge.
or
Yeah.
you'd have one collector that would call you and be like, "I want one of those," and you'd be like, "All right, fine." You know, like it's frustrating for me too because then there are times when you'll work on a movie, um, and then stuff that you built ends up at the end of the movie, like the props guy keeps it, or the physical effects guy keeps it. There's one guy who's kept a couple pieces from movies that we've done, and he's just recently started selling them. And I'm kind of like, bro, that wasn't even yours to sell.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you know, you can't you can't keep track of everything. You try, and then you'll come back to work, and you'll be unpacking. You go, hey, what happened to that? You know, and it's like, oh shit, I don't know. Maybe Prop still has it, or you know, whatever. Um, so I think when you're on set and you're filming it and you're part of it and you know that it's going to be something special, then you kind of, you know, a connection happens, you know, because I have the molds for things and I could make as many as I wanted to, but there is still something very, very powerful about having the one that was
The
on
one
set.
that is.
The
The
one, the
one,
one, the one.
the one that
Yes.
the actor had. Because, you know, I have a lot of people that reach out all the time. Hey, do you still have that? I'm like, that movie was 30 fucking years ago. Like, no. Um, you know, like in the original Scream, you know, I get a lot of people like, oh, whatever happened to Drew Barrymore's, you know, but what would, you know, then because I had two partners at the time, now it's just me. Um, and, you know, some guy would come by the shop with again a load of money, and these big collector guys would come by, and they would just and we're like, well, fuck, it's just sitting on the shelf. Like, sure, how much?
Right.
Oh, $5,000. So a lot of our stuff um, ended up in the hands of these collectors that were, you know, I don't even know where they, but we were always like, sure, you know, and then they would tell their friends, hey, they're selling this, and you know, so we never. I was the one out of the three of us, me and Kurtzman and Berger. I was the one that was more attached to the stuff because of my DNA, I guess. But they didn't care. You know, there were times when I would go away on location and come back, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we sold that." I'm like, "What? Why did you sell that?" Uh,
Have you, if you don't mind me asking, have you ever, I guess, purchased back one of your pieces, like something that got sold 20 years ago? It shows up in auction, or a
almost.
private, or even someone reaches out. Has that ever occurred to you where it's like, fuck, I always wanted that one.
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy it
yeah.
back, even though you made it, because you do hear stories about like George Lucas refusing to buy Star Wars stuff in principle.
Yeah,
Like he feels like it should have been his
it
or it
should have been his.
was
Yeah.
his and he won't give the money. But I was curious if you ever did.
I thought about it. There was, you know, not long ago there was some stuff from Army of Darkness that was going up for auction, and it was one of our old puppets, and I think it was the Planet Hollywood auction because Planet Hollywood got a lot of that stuff, and there was
Yep.
a lot. I mean, every auction there's stuff of ours in there, and I'm kind of like, oh, well. But I do remember actually looking at some of those Deadite puppets and thinking, I really would have loved to have one of those in my personal collection. Would have been really cool. But I didn't.
You didn't.
You didn't. Okay. Is at your house, which obviously you're in your office right now, is your whole house filled with like props, or do you have a prop room, or how do you like to? Obviously, you can build your own displays on a level that a lot of us can't, but how do you decorate? You know what I mean?
Well, I have where I live when we bought the house. They had this one little section in the house with this big giant room with vaulted ceilings, and the whole wall that goes to the outside was on a hinge, so you could open the whole wall. And and they had in that room a bunch of little couches and a piano. And I was like, okay, well, I don't need that. So when we moved in, that became the display room. And then right below it, there's a little step down, and there's another room that had a bar in it. And I'm like, well, I don't need the bar. So basically right now, I have two rooms that are off to the side that have all of my props. And
cool.
It's always funny when my kids invite somebody over who hasn't been to the house yet, because I'll answer the door, go, hey, how's it going? Is Devin here? Yeah. And then they'll get 2 feet in the door, and Devin will be like, all right, come on, you got to come this way. And my kids go and show their friends all the props.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
Do your kids collect? Are they interested in it at all, or not really? I mean, obviously you're their dad, but like, do you get the sense that they're
for sure,
that like they would? Okay, very cool.
My son Devin, actually, he's got the same sort of interest in it. So there's been a couple things that have come up in auction that I've bought for him. Like
cool.
one of the snowtrooper helmets and some weapons from Star Wars and things like that. Even, I got from, was it Prometheus? Which was the one? Yeah, Prometheus, the little egg embryos at the end when Fassbender opens the drawer and they have like the little alien embryos, the face hugger and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The samples.
I got one of those trays with each of the embryos in it from the movie. And as soon as I got it, he took it. It still sits in his room.
That's good.
So yeah. And
so is he more sci-fi then? Prometheus and Star Wars than
maybe a little bit, maybe a little more sci-fi. I mean, look, he's a big Lego guy. He's got Lego stuff, and ironically, he works for Heritage now.
Oh, wow. Funny.
So he's part of the entertainment.
Oh, I think they told me that he was in the Beverly Hills office.
Yeah.
I think they told me that.
That's
right.
That's when Joe called and said, I can't do the interview. Yes, because they had their marketing campaign with AMC for the Walking Dead auction.
Right. Yeah.
By the way,
brought to you by Julian's.
Not that we wouldn't have wanted to discuss The Walking Dead with you, which we would have loved to, but this is so much more fun talking about
the whole
everything else. So yeah, exactly. I
do have a question though, Dave. You have one of the Jaws. Do you have one of the Jaws clappers?
No, I've been outbid every time. I keep losing, unfortunately.
Somebody told me that because when Prop Store had the first one about 8 years ago, the second unit clapper, that you had beat me out on it because I was bidding on it, and then I lost out, and I thought you got it.
No, I thought I was I guess I can't even now remember because I'm getting a couple of them confused. I don't think I was the underbidder, but I was maybe like bidder 3 or 4, but I got beaten out also.
And now,
so I unfortunately did.
Spielberg has it because it's in the Academy. Yeah. But I just got the one that Prop Store just auctioned a couple months ago.
Oh, excellent.
Because I wanted.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, I'm glad I didn't bid against you on that one because I almost did. So I'm glad you got that.
I saw that one in the flesh when they did the little press tour when they had those little VIP showings of it.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough. I have two things from Jaws in my collection. I have an Amity patch. I have one of the sheriff ones. So one of the ones that Scheider has with the extra little diamond thing. And then my favorite piece is I have an Amity real estate poster that somebody they put on their lawn in Martha's Vineyard.
Wow.
And the people were smart enough to frame it and keep it, very and cool. Then threw it on eBay 9 years ago, and probably the cheapest Jaws prop ever purchased because I got it for a couple of $100, and it's I love it, but that's about all I've ever really been able to get a hold of.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I'll tell you my two favorite eBay props that I have.
Oh, please.
Because years and years ago, when there were a lot of prop people that were like, "Oh, what am I going to do with this?" And so one of them was I got an original cookie, square green cookie from Soylent Green.
Oh, okay.
And the woman that sold it said that her dad was the prop master, and they had buckets of them in their house, and they would use them for kindling to start fires with.
Oh, God.
So I bought one. It's in a little frame and everything, which I kind of love.
Yeah.
And then the other one was the Newsweek cover from The Dead Zone of Martin Sheen holding the little kid up. And it says "No future for Stilson." And it had to be it had to be 30 years ago that I bought this, and it was a prop guy who worked on the movie and was out of Canada, and I think I paid $300 for it. And then when he sent it to me, he sent me a bunch of the Greg Stilson for President brochures that they were handing out to everybody.
Oh, wow.
I loved it. And then I scanned it, I made a copy of it, and then when I worked on The Mist, I had Stephen King sign it for me.
Perfect.
So he signed the copy. I didn't want to have him sign the original, but he signed the copy.
Good call.
So the copy hangs on my wall.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That is excellent. Is there a movie for you that you don't have something from that would be your all-time sort of dream, not that collecting
the white whale, the thing that's missing.
Yeah, not that collecting ever ends. I don't ever want to say to you, and then you would be done, because we all know that's a lie.
Yeah.
But what's the movie or the piece that haunts you as a collector? Because I think we all have one or two of those.
Yeah, honestly, getting the Jaws clapper recently was a big thing.
Was a biggie, yeah.
That haunted me for a long time. And the Logan's Run gun, they had one when Greg Jean did the Greg Jean auction. They had a Logan's Run gun in the studio MGM case, and I was bidding on it, and then it got to a certain point. I think it was $28,000 or something.
I think that was another Peter Jackson win.
Yeah.
I think he swept all of that stuff up.
Well, it's easy to just blame Peter, because
but
that's what we do.
And I think,
it's fun.
I think
it's fun to do it too.
There was I'll tell you what it was. There's a piece that got away that broke my heart. When they did the Kevin Burns auction, and the original painting from the Towering Inferno, the John Berkey poster art.
Yeah.
Poster art, yep.
I wanted that. When I was a kid, I must have drawn that poster 100 times. And I went down to Heritage and I saw the original poster, and I kind of said to my wife, look, this might go for some money, and we'll figure out a way, maybe I'll sell a couple pieces or whatever. But it's really important to me because it was a piece of artwork that I just stared at and stared at and stared at. And Joe said, "Well, it's probably going to go for $130,000." And I was like, "Ugh." So it went up, and I think it sold for $325,000.
Yeah, that went crazy.
And it was me and somebody else, whoever ended up getting it. And I kept going, waiting for this guy to get out, and the price kept going up and going up and going up. And finally, I'm like, I can't justify
You sold as many things in your head as you could sell, and you reached that end.
And then I bailed. And usually when you get into something like that, there's also a little bit of like, well, this is how much I'm going to spend, and if it goes over that, then it's not worth it. So forget it. I did not have that emotion. I was really devastated for a long time, because I own the prototype painting that John Berkey did, because not a lot of people know this, but the artist would do it just a rough comp, sketch it out.
But a lot of his rough comps are really loose. Is the one you have super loose? Like it almost suggests colors and shapes. When I've seen some of the Berkeys that I've owned, so it suggests it, but it's not really it's not a mini version of the painting in its own way.
It's pretty close, though. It's pretty. I might have.
That's excellent.
I might have a copy of it I'll have to look in the closet and see. I might have a copy of it because I scanned it and made a print for a friend of mine who's a big Towering Inferno fan. So I have that. So I'm kind of like, okay, well, I have the consolation prize of the painting that John did when he was working it out. But that original painting is so magnificent, and I don't even know who ended up with it, because if I did, that would probably be bad news, because I'd be like, but I'm not that kind of guy, though. It's funny. There's some prop collectors, they don't have any shame in like reaching out to somebody once a week. Hey, you gonna sell that yet? Hey, what do you think? Hey, I know you have it. I know you want to get rid of it. It's not my style. And a lot of there's one particular prop collector who's a very good friend of mine, and and he does that, but he does it in a respectful way. There's other people that are just obnoxious about it.
Yeah, there's a way to do it.
And he's really good at it, and he always ends up getting good stuff because he's a nice guy and he's very respectful. But it's always a little hard for me to like. I did it once with John Landis, because he had something.
Oh, really?
He had something I wanted, and I said, John, where is it? What are you doing with it? Why don't you just sell it to me? And he's like, well, Greg, I think I want to hold on to it. And I just thought, maybe I'll hit him up again, but it's just not my style to like, do that. I don't know why. I'd probably have way more stuff if I was a little more aggressive about it, but.
It's funny. I try and also sort of like, well, I'm going to bug you once a year and be kind of polite about it. And that has worked, but also then there's also, oh yeah, no, I sold it 8 months ago. Someone wrote me every week and I sold it to them because they annoyed
me more than you did.
Yes, I've had that happen. To me as well.
So it does work both ways. Well, now I'm curious, maybe something from one of Landis's own movies, or just from something he loved
one
also?
of his own movies.
Very cool. Very cool. Fascinating. I'm going to guess American Werewolf. You don't have to say. You don't have to say. Yeah, but you don't have to say. But I have one thing from American Werewolf in London, but it's not makeup or effects related. I have the See You Next Wednesday porno poster from the British.
I bid on that.
Oh, okay.
I bid on that because I thought it was awesome.
I didn't bid on it. I got it, I guess, from the person that won it when they decided to sell it after the fact. So I missed that auction.
Right.
And then eventually it was offered to me privately and I just grabbed it.
Yeah, it was like 8 years, 8 years ago or something, I want to say, maybe a little longer.
The auction was 8 years ago, but I only got it about 3 or 4 years ago.
I think you got it while we were doing this podcast, because I remember you doing What's New in Props.
It was during COVID. Okay. I got that piece. I love the movie. It's also one of my wife's favorite movies.
Yeah, me too.
So that was one where, like, even though it was a semi-risque ad for a porno, she loved it.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So that kind of worked out really well. We're going to let you go and respect your time. I wanted to talk for 5 seconds about the Jaws exhibit, just because I finally got over to go see it, which was really incredible. I think it's the best thing the Academy Museum has ever done.
Without a doubt.
And
I've not been able to see it yet.
And you were beyond instrumental in it. And how did that, I mean, as much or as little as you want to say, I mean, how did it come about and why is it so good?
Well, I'll tell you, it came about because when, the Junkyard Bruce, the shark that was up at Pick Park.
Which is the piece that's the piece they've had hanging since they opened.
Yes.
And you were instrumental in getting that to them when the museum opened, right?
We did the restoration for that. And I basically went to them because I had gone to Pick Park probably in 1998 and tried to buy that from them. And I said, I'll give you $5,000. And the guy's like, screw you. Like he didn't want to sell it because he just liked it. He thought it was cool.
Right.
So when it closed down and Universal got it, or the Academy got it, I reached out to them and said, look, I own a special effects makeup studio. I'd love to do the restoration. I will donate a big portion of the proceeds as a donation to the museum. And you guys pay a small portion of it. That's how we got it. And that's what we did. Nice. And it took about 4 months. The great thing about that was once you peeled off those layers of tar and paint that they had on it, it was really just fiberglass shell that had some, spiderweb cracks on it. But it was there. It was made out of the original mold when the movie was about to be released. So when we did the restoration, I had original teeth that I had molded and I sculpted the inside of the mouth. And so when the exhibit came up, they were like, okay, well, we want to do this Jaws exhibit. And we understand that you have a big collection of Jaws, memorabilia. And like I have blueprints and posters and stills and scripts. And they have a bunch of my stuff there. But I wanted to do the shark. I wanted to do the scaled down. And I had said, look, let us do a quarter scale shark. We'll make it like, the side will be open and you can go and operate it and puppeteer it. And
that's so cool. Yeah.
So we convinced them to let us make it. I think the most disappointing thing is people that go in there, they try to break it because they're like, let's see how durable this is. And I have videos of people literally
going crazy,
breaking it on purpose, which breaks my heart. So we've been down there multiple times because the people are not very, they're not very gentle with it. They want to see if they can break it. So we've been down there a couple times to fix it up. But, I got to walk through the exhibit with Steven and watch his reaction to seeing everything. I demonstrated the shark for him, and he was operating it and filming it with his phone. And of course, I'm like, okay, I can retire and die and go to heaven right now. And I was also a producer on the Jaws at 50 documentary.
Which was wonderful as well,
And he said, you were really good in that documentary. Thank you. He said to me, thank you for keeping the spirit of Jaws alive all these years. Oh. And I'm like, me? Like my voice squeaked a little bit. But it's a great exhibit. There's some amazing pieces there. And I agree, it's the best thing the Academy's done, for sure.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah. I've been stuck in London.
Oh, yeah. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, really wonderful.
I am there. I missed it the last time. It was not ready yet the last time I was in. So
yeah.
Greg, this was incredible.
So much, Greg.
This was really fabulous. Thank you so much.
Part one of many to come.
No, we will have you back, and truly, and I'll bug you offline. An open invitation. Let's grab a bite or come on over. I want to show you stuff.
That would be great. I would love
all sorts of things. It'll be wonderful.
Awesome.
If people want to find you, are you online anywhere?
I'm on
Do you want people to find you? Okay.
Yeah, it's at G Nicotero. I'm not big on social media, but
that's okay.
But
you're there. You're there if they want.
That's where you can find me. Yeah, for sure.
Perfect.
Cool.
And check out the Jaws exhibit. And thank you, everyone. And we'll be back real soon. This was fabulous. Thank you.